Hello, I'm Gareth Jones, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome PSP into my little shed at Strongroom. Any piece of music is physics, isn't it? It is all physics, but physics is very deep and very beautiful and very spiritual and very awe-inspiring. You know, to say just physics is like a huge mistake, isn't it? Physics is, especially in the digital world, we can actually, you know, the waveform we can analyze it in a very detailed way. I think we can analyze every element of the waveform, and indeed the programmers are doing it, otherwise it wouldn't come out the loudspeaker. It still doesn't mean if that waveform is Aretha Franklin or Ella Fitzgerald or Nina Simone or someone, that's awesome magic is coming out the speakers. We can still say, oh, no, but it's just a fast Fourier, it's just a waveform. You know, I mean, it's magic. It's complete magic, what everyone's doing. There's a sonic thing that I learnt from a great mastering engineer that I kind of share in a way that the less, obviously the frequency spectrum is great to use. It's great to have bass and top and middle, and you know, and it's great to have left and right in a panorama. But the less there is in the sound field, often the bigger the whole record sounds. And when I started trying to make big records, my automatic idea was to put on loads of things, because I thought that the more that I put on, the bigger it's going to sound. But in some ways, it's often the opposite. That a recording of a jazz trio can sound huge because there's drums, bass, and piano, say. In pure sonic terms, obviously that might not tick everyone's boxes musically, because they might want to hear 22 tracks of synths as well. But I'm just talking about scale, really, sonic scale. Often, the less it's extremely hard. You've got to be an extremely good arranger to make something sound big with lots of instruments and lots of tracks. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, Mahler can make a 100-piece orchestra sound huge, but Mahler was a genius arranger. And Brian Wilson could do very detailed, or you know, Wall of Sound guy, Phil Spector, could use a lot of instruments and make a big sound. But many of us don't have that skill, and we just throw lots of instruments at the track hoping it's going to sound bigger. And the more you put on, the smaller it sounds, which is kind of interesting, philosophically. There's a great facsimile of T.S. Eliot's Wasteland poem, you know, handwritten, I think, it might be typed, and he took it to his friend Ezra Pound, who advised him on it, and two great giants, I suppose, of 20th century literature, and only Ezra Pound had the guts to like strike out pages of it. So, oh, you don't need that page, like boom, line right through it. And that kind of dramatic removal of unnecessary stuff is like super inspirational. And when I saw this facsimile, you know, the facsimile copies that you can buy, I was like, wow, that is powerful, because almost no one else would have the courage to say, well, you're a genius, but there's way too much. You know, the power of the editor, so important, isn't it? You know. We discovered like a synergy about reducing, because I've worked on my project, as I played you one track that I worked on really in 2019, and most of the work of the second half of the project at least has just been about taking stuff out, and the more that I take out, the more the vision expands for me. Hey, I mean, hopefully other people like it too, but that has been a miraculous journey for me, revealing the inner workings of the piece by taking stuff out. It's really easy to slap stuff on, but then you have to pull out everything that's superfluous. And that really echoes with me for what you were saying about how the approach, how plug-in development goes from a complete chaos with 500 knobs down to something honed and usable that might only have 12 knobs, say. So I thought that's an interesting parallel, isn't it? We've talked a lot about the parallels between making music and making software. It's all kind of making art, and a lot of making art involves striking out, throwing away, removing shit that you don't need. And that's fantastic when you do that. Code is as much a work of art as the musical composition. Clearly, I mean, you know,